Hey guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today we're going to be talking about something a little bit different. I'm going to share with you my breastfeeding journey. I've kind of debated about posting this video because it's super personal to me, but I thought back to what I needed when I was going through that time, and I felt that I really needed encouragement. And I really hope this video encourages you to stick with it and just push through because it can be super rewarding. And I also felt that I needed somebody to relate to. And I found a lot of people on the internet that were struggling and that were giving up. And that's totally fine. But I really wanted to push through the struggles, and I really wanted to breastfeed my child until they were 1. Breastfeeding is hard. I get it. And then I found people on the internet who had just amazing breastfeeding relationships with hardly any struggles, and they wanted to do it until their child was like 5, which is totally fine too. But I was somewhere in the middle, and I hope there's somebody else who has similar goals to me, and this is something that you can relate to as well. I'm also going to talk about in this video how I was able to drastically increase my milk supply, which is something that I really struggled with. So if you don't really care about my personal story and just want to jump to how I was able to increase my supply, I'll leave the little number on the screen here that you can jump to, and I'll show you how I did that. Not really show, more tell. I don't really think that's appropriate for YouTube. If you want to hear my whole story, then let's start at the beginning with my first baby. So I started thinking back to when I was 39, 40 weeks pregnant with my first baby. And I honestly felt like breastfeeding was really weird. And I remember texting my sister-in-law, who had 3 babies at the time, saying, "Is breastfeeding weird? Like, don't you think it's kind of weird?" And she's like, no. She probably thought it was weird that I thought it was weird. But nonetheless, I knew it was something that I was going to do, or at least try to do, because I knew that was what was best for my baby. So I had my baby and my milk came in, and I remember being so excited to sleep on my belly, and my boobs were like, Milk came in and they were fully engorged, and it was super painful to even lay on my side. So once my milk came in, I started pumping, and I almost became like obsessed with pumping and making sure that I had enough milk for my baby, because I was dead set on not feeding him anything else. I almost felt like any alternative, like formula, seemed like poison to my baby. It sounds crazy, I know, but that is just what I was thinking at that time. And since I was pumping so much, my letdown became so powerful that my baby couldn't handle it. And he was just a small infant at the time, and he started projectile vomiting after I would feed him. And he was also getting an imbalance of the milk, the foremilk and the hindmilk. Looking back now, I know that that's why, but at the time I didn't know. First time mom. So once I figured that out, I quit the pumping, and everything, went pretty good until 6 months. At 6 months old, my baby got his first 2 teeth. And one time when I was nursing him, he bit down. And my first reaction when he bit down on me with his 2 little sharp teeth was to pull out. And when I was trying to pull out, he was still clenched down. And he scraped the whole underside. And it was pretty painful then, but the most painful part was when I would try to nurse him afterwards, and his teeth would rub on that same spot, and it took forever to heal. So I was trying to do all these different positions to get his teeth to not be on that spot, because my 2 favorite positions, the cradle and the football, his teeth were right there. I thought I was gonna give up then, and thank goodness I didn't, because afterwards it was truly what they talk about as being an amazing breastfeeding relationship. And I ended up nursing my baby until he was about 11 and a half months old, and then I got pregnant again. And after I got pregnant, I had like no milk. So I just fed him my freezer stash until he was 1, and it worked out perfectly. If you would have asked me then, I would have said breastfeeding is so hard, but I didn't really know how much harder it could get until my second baby. When I had my second baby, I knew that I wasn't going to do the crazy pumping thing that I did before. And thank goodness, because I didn't have time to anyways. When you already have 1 baby, and I'm sure the more you have, the harder getting that time to just sit there for 20 minutes glued to a pump, I'm sure it gets harder and harder. At the hospital, they told me that he had a minor tongue tie, and it's not worth correcting unless I'm having pain when nursing him, which I wasn't. So we just decided, let's not take care of it if it's not gonna cause any problems later down the line. So at the appointment that you have like a few days after your baby's born, the doctor said that his bilirubin level was still pretty high and that she wanted to put him on formula for 3 days to see if it lowers. Because I guess, I'm not an expert or anything, but from what I understand, breast milk can still contain some of those whatever that make it read high. And I said, no, I am not putting my child on formula. I still viewed it as poison. I did not ever use it with my first baby. I am not going to start now, especially so early on in the breastfeeding journey. I also was afraid of nipple confusion with the bottle. So I said no, and then I had to get his heel pricked. And now his levels being high makes sense to me, which is something that I'll get to in a little bit. And when he was about, I think, a week old, I noticed that my breast never felt full like I remember day 7 of my first baby. And I kind of thought that, okay, well, they've already done this before, that it's already stretched out. Maybe that's the reason, because I remember my belly wasn't as hard the second time around as it was the first. For a little while, that's what I thought. And when I would pump, I wouldn't have the extra like I had with my first baby. I would have kind of just enough. And that scared me because I knew that after 6 weeks, my supply would regulate. I was contacting my lactation consultant and telling her my concerns, and she was giving me, I guess, like troubleshooting things to try, which none of them worked. He was always fussy, always crying, always wanting more. And so sometimes I would just pump and feed my baby the bottle. And when I pump, I would get, 5 ounces each side, so 10 ounces total. And my lactation consultant said, okay, that's, plenty for your baby. But I just knew something wasn't right. And I kept getting reassured by the lactation consultant and my son's pediatrician that he was gaining weight. It was fine. But deep down, I knew, since I had done this before for a year, I knew based on my past experience that my body's not doing the right thing. And it was so incredibly frustrating to me. So I started doing everything that I could to increase my supply. I started taking special supplements, drinking mother's milk tea, taking fenugreek, blessed thistle, eating more galactagogues. I was eating oatmeal multiple times a day. I was trying to eat as many dark leafy greens as I could, and I was also taking this terrible shot of green juice powder. Oh my gosh, it smells terrible, but I was doing that to try to increase my supply. I was drinking as much water as I thought I could. This entire month, I was just getting more and more frustrated. I was feeling overwhelmed. I also think I had a little bit, I don't know if this is even a thing, but I think that I have postpartum OCD. Is that even a thing? I have no idea. But I would sit there and I would pump, and I could not stand to sit there in the chair and pumping knowing that underneath the TV stand might have dust on it or something crazy like that. And I couldn't sleep at night if the house wasn't completely spotless. And I know that I get kind of a little overboard on the nesting thing, but I think that spills into postpartum, which truly affects my ability to just enjoy the newborn phase. I was feeling incredibly overwhelmed, but I didn't feel that I could ask for help. I felt like I only had 2 babies. There's lots of people with more kids than me that handle it fine. And my husband at the time was working crazy hours, tons of hours. He wasn't home often to help me, and when he was just home to sleep. And I didn't want to wake him up with the baby crying, when he was home for just a short period of time. I was feeling frustrated in my body, that my body wasn't performing and doing the thing that, first of all, it's done in the past, and second of all, the thing that it's made to do. It's made to feed my baby, and I just couldn't do it. During this time, I was contacting my lactation consultant all the time, and she was only in there just every other day, so to only hear from her every other day. And when you're struggling with breastfeeding, one day can make a huge difference. I also went into my lactation consultant to do like a weighing feed. I'm not sure if that's the correct term, but they weigh the baby before and after you feed them. And when I went in for that feed, he wasn't fully awake, and I kept telling the lactation consultant, this is a sleepy feed, like he's not gonna eat as much as he normally would. And he kept going from side to side to side to side. Basically now I know he was just getting the letdown from each side because he couldn't suck hard enough to get the hind milk or anything else. But she said some babies do that, that's normal. And she said that he got the correct amount for the weight he was born at, so that he might just be a fussy baby. But honestly, deep down, I knew something wasn't right, and I was just getting so frustrated. And this kind of went on for that whole month. It just kept going downhill, to the point where I was just not myself at all. I was crying, which is not me at all, and I was not ready to give up because I had a hard time bonding with my second baby. When you already have a child who has a personality that you know you've been around for a year, and then you have a brand new baby who you know nothing about, that personally was hard for me. So I felt that breastfeeding was the only bond that we really had, and I did not want to give that up. And finally it got to the point where I was so low, his cry didn't even bother me anymore. And I knew that wasn't right, so I called my doctor and I said, what can I do? I don't know what to do. I'm at a loss. They had me come in and they diagnosed me with postpartum depression and gave me this pill. And I went home and I took the pill because I was so desperate, so low at this point. And then I looked up side effects of taking that pill while breastfeeding. And like the number one thing is autism. And I'm like, oh no, I'm not doing that. I said a pill was not going to solve my problem. I need to fix this actual problem. So whether that's quit breastfeeding or find the actual problem that's causing it. And at this point, I was talking to one of my friends and she said, your babies need their mom more than they need your milk. I knew that maybe this was something that I couldn't do because I wasn't present as a mom. I was so focused on breastfeeding that mentally I was not there for them to be the mom that I normally am. I just quit pumping. I quit feeding him, trying to nurse him. I just was feeding him the stuff I had already frozen and had in the refrigerator. And I said, I can't do it anymore. So I started to look up formula. And when you breastfeed, you know that what your baby's getting is the best thing, but like picking out of hundreds of formulas, like how am I supposed to know which is the best one? And so I kept researching, trying to find something to fix the breastfeeding instead of quitting. But this had been 2 days of not pumping or nursing or anything. And I finally found some information about tongue ties on a pediatric dentist website. This is the first time that I felt that I could relate to anything. The symptoms that they were saying for a tongue tie were exactly the things that I was going through. I actually want to pull up the email that I sent to my lactation consultant and read you exactly what I was experiencing. Exhaustion before full, frequently coughing or choking on milk. I thought it was from the letdown, so we tried the upright position, and she had me like sit him upright, which did nothing. Gasping for air mid-feed, frequently release and relatch, unsatisfied after prolonged feeds. I would feed him for almost an hour, and a half hour later, he would wake up hungry again. And so it was exhausting for me. This was around the clock. Hiccups due to swallowing of air. I usually give him grape water every feed to relieve hiccups. Frequently and prolonged nursing sessions, fussing, fighting, or crying, or seeming frustrated during feeding sessions. Lip blisters, he had one in the middle of his top lip, gumming on the nipple when frustrated. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, this is exactly my problem. I had a hard time explaining what was going on until I read this, and I was like, this is 100% what is happening. And that gave me so much hope. So I was researching places where I could get this tongue tie release surgery done at a pediatric dentist near me, but there were none that my insurance covered. So I found an ear, nose, and throat doctor. So to get an appointment with them, you need to have a referral from either your lactation consultant or your doctor. Okay, this is getting kind of long. Basically, I ramble on for a little while about how difficult it was to get that appointment, but we finally got it, and I'll pick up right there. Okay, now back to the video. And once I got that appointment, I knew, well geez, I haven't been pumping or feeding in the last couple days, which, you know, that's a big deal, especially when you're struggling with supply anyways. So I had just a short period of time to get my supply up fast. And that's what I'm going to share with you of how I was able to do that. But first I want to let you know that I did end up breastfeeding my son until he was almost 13 months old. And if you are going through this, I know that it's so challenging, but it's so incredibly rewarding if you can push through those struggles. And let me tell you, these are the only things that work for me. Like I said before, I had tried so many different supplements, but these basic things are the things that really worked for me. But I feel like it's most important to preface this by saying I am not a lactation consultant. I'm just sharing what worked for me personally. Okay, the first thing that I did to increase my supply was pump. I was pumping round the clock every 3 hours for 20 minutes. This kind of goes against what my lactation consultant said and encouraged, which was nursing all the time. But if my baby was not getting milk out of my breast, my body was not telling itself to make more milk. So what I needed to do was extract as much milk as I could, so my body was telling itself to make more milk. And yes, this was extremely exhausting. I felt glued to the pump. And honestly, now when I hear the pumping noise, it kind of gives me cringes because I did this for so long to increase my supply. And I'm thankful I did it, but during that time, man, it's tough. The second thing I did to increase my supply was I drank water. And I know you've probably heard this before, but I'm telling you, you need to track it. You have to drink a gallon a day. I thought I was drinking enough water before. I mean, I was taking my water bottle wherever I went, but you have to track it. Otherwise, you're probably not getting enough. And what you need to make milk is water. Put lemon in it to mix it up a little bit. Do whatever you have to drink at least a gallon of water a day. And the third and final thing I did to increase my supply was not stress about it. This is way easier said than done, I know, but I just didn't think about nursing or anything. I just put the pump on and just thought about my baby. I actually said affirmations like, I have enough milk. I thought about the milk going into the pump. I mentally made an effort to focus on the pump, focus on my baby, and I feel that helped a lot. Previously, I would constantly feel in my shirt to feel if I was full or not. I just quit doing that. And I'd also encourage you not to look at the pump and every single drop that's going in there, because that can be kind of frustrating, thinking that, oh my gosh, I've only produced 1.5 ounces or something like that. I feel that a lot of breastfeeding is mental. So if you can not stress about it, know that you have enough milk. Tell yourself you have enough milk. I think that is super encouraging for you. So those are the things that I did to personally increase my milk supply. And I hope that if you're struggling right now, you find encouragement in this video and find it helpful to push through those struggles. I know it is so incredibly difficult, but if you can find the support system you need to get through, I know you can do it. If you have any questions about my personal experience, I'd be happy to answer them for you. Thank you so much for watching this video. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.